In the previous tutorial we looked at using the while loop to repeat a series of commands multiple times. And what we're going to do in this tutorial is look at how we can now apply that to solving a specific problem. So let's look at the problem that we've set ourselves. Here we've been asked to write a program that asks the user to enter a series of numbers. Once they enter -1, the program should output the total of all the numbers input. So in effect what we need to do is continue to ask the user to enter numbers, and only once they enter a -1, which we'll call a rogue value, a value that we'll use to flag up that they've now ended entering the numbers, we then need to display the total. So what we need to do again is apply our problem solving skills that we're starting to develop, because we might not know how we're going to solve this all in one go. And like we said before, the best way to approach a problem is to not see it necessarily as a whole problem, but break it down into smaller sub-problems. So the first thing we perhaps need to do is we need to get a number in from the user. So we already know how to do that because we've done that several times before. We use the input command, and we use a variable where we wish to store the number. So in this case we're going to create a variable called number, and we're going to use the input command to ask the user to enter that number. And then, just to give them a little bit of help, we'll tell them that they need to enter -1 to exit. So we've now got a line of code that asks the user to enter a number. Let's press the play button. We should get a box asking us to enter a number, -1 to exit. Let's put a number in here. But of course it does nothing, because at the moment all we've done is ask the user to enter a number. So let's go back and see what we had to do. Write a program that asks the user to enter a series of numbers. Once they enter -1, it should output the total of all the numbers entered. So we're not asking the user to simply enter one number. We want them to enter a series of numbers. But we don't know how many numbers they're going to enter. And this is where the distinction is useful between a for loop and a while loop. We're going to solve this problem using the while loop. We can't use a for loop because we can only use a for loop if we know how many times we're going to repeat something before we start the loop. In this case, it's the user that's going to control how many times we're going to repeat it, so we don't know before we start the loop how many times we need to repeat it. So that's why we need to use a while loop in this case. So we're going to ask the user to enter a number, -1 to exit. Now, it's entirely possible that the first number that they're going to enter is -1, supposing maybe they run the program by mistake. So the first line of code we're going to have here is going to ask for the number, and then we're going to introduce the while loop. And we need to check that the number is not equal to -1. So we're saying here, while the number is not equal to, remember not equal is the exclamation mark followed by the equal sign, while the number is not equal to -1, we then want to start the loop. Remember the colon that triggers the indent. So what do we need to do? Well, we've got a number in, and we need to keep track of the total. So we've got the number in. Let's assume that the number that we've entered is not -1, so it's going to come into this loop. So we need to add the number to the total. So we'll simply say here total equals total plus number. Okay, so we're taking the total variable and we're going to add whatever number they've entered to that total. Now remember from one of our previous examples we had an error at this point here because we hadn't introduced total to the computer. So the other thing that we need to do up here is we need to initialize total to set total to equal 0, so that when we introduce total down here, then it's got something in it already in order to add number to it. And then all we need to do is ask the user to enter another number. So we'll take this code here, we'll copy it, and we'll paste it down here, making sure that we indent it so it's part of the loop. So now what we're doing is we're initializing total to 0, asking the user to enter a number to begin with. While that number is not -1, we can add it to the total. We can then get the next number, and then of course Come back round to here. If the next number they've entered is not -1, we'll add it to the total, ask them to enter another number. If they then enter -1, it'll not start the loop, it'll drop down, and of course what we then want to do is print whatever is in the total variable. And hopefully that's now the solution to this problem. We've initialized total to 0, asked them to enter their first number. So long as they haven't entered -1, we'll add that to the total, we'll ask them for another number. Come back around, repeat the process, have they entered -1? If they haven't, add it to the total, get the next number, and so on. Once they enter -1, you'll obviously stop doing this while loop, drop down, and print the total. So let's see what we get if we run this. It's asking for a number, -1 to exit if we want to, so let's say we enter the number 2. It's asking for another number because we're now repeating the process here as part of the while loop. Let's enter 4. Let's enter 10. And then let's enter -1. Now as soon as we enter -1 as the number, when it comes and checks the while loop condition, it should identify the fact the number is -1 this time, so it will drop down and it should print the total. And yes, it does down here. So that's an example as to how we can use a while loop to solve a problem. And that concludes this tutorial.